Welcome to Inspired to Lead. Before we start the episode, we'd like to thank our friends at Roth & Co., innovators in accounting and business advisory, for making this conversation possible. I'm your host, Talia Mashiach, and I sat down with Aimee Baron, founder and executive director of I Was Supposed to Have a Baby, to discuss.
Life never goes the way you expected. 1 in 4 pregnancies ends in a miscarriage. That's massive.
Women for sure have struggled a little bit more.
Every single person is probably having some kind of loss.
Was there ever a time where things really got so hard that you wanted to quit, but you pushed through it?
I had 4 second-trimester miscarriages in a row, and that was after having 3 healthy children.
What was that motivator? Was it healing for you?
There was still a lot more work to do, and there were still holes in the support that the Jewish community had in regard to fertility challenges. And so I started I Was Supposed to Have a Baby.
Aimee, thank you so much for joining me today.
I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you've made it. You came all the way in from New Jersey.
New York.
Oh, Riverdale, right?
Riverdale,
okay,
yes.
Which wasn't too bad.
No, not
the
too
traffic wasn't too bad.
Not too bad.
I was in Brooklyn yesterday, as I was sharing with you, and I thought 30 minutes, but it wound up being an hour.
Welcome to New York City traffic.
Yes.
It's phenomenal. You can never predict what's going to be.
I was really close. We weren't even moving as I was getting closer. And I was like, should I just said to the Uber driver, should I just get out and walk? I'd get there faster.
Totally.
And he's like, well, except for that you're going to be on a podcast and I don't think you should walk because then you're going to show up and that's not going to work. I'm like, you're right. So I literally sat in the car for 10 minutes, like inching our way towards the studio.
Oh my gosh.
But it's New York, so lots of good and lots of challenges.
This is the city. This is what we do. So.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the reasons why I pretty much never leave my pajamas at my home because I don't want to deal with this traffic either. So yeah.
Is Riverdale, does it have as much traffic as?
No. I mean,
Riverdale.
Riverdale is what we like to call the upper West Side. It's technically the Bronx.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of traffic, but it's nowhere near.
Nothing like
Riverdale itself is not as bad as this.
Wow. So nice. Okay. Well, I really am excited to have a conversation with you today. I'd love to just start off. Tell us just a little bit about yourself. As everyone heard and I introduced you, it's Dr. Aimee Baron. Just start kind of your own story, what you do today, a little bit about your family, and then we'll take back to kind of how you started in this journey.
Absolutely. So I think, the thing that you need to know or people need to know about me is that I always wanted to be a pediatrician. From the time that I was very little, I loved medicine. I loved science. I just thought medicine was the coolest thing because it had this discovery piece. It was science. It was math. There were mysteries of you had to try to figure out what people were dealing with, what kind of diagnoses they had. I thought that was it was really interesting. And I loved kids, but I found I could have become a teacher. I could have become a camp counselor and still worked with kids, but I needed more intellectual stimulation and picking up on the science and math pieces and that sort of mystery was really where, the two came together. And I kind of really from a very young age decided, okay, this is what I want to do. There was a tiny period of time where I thought I might want to be an actress, but not exactly the same, but.
Did anyone try to tell you you shouldn't be a pediatrician?
No.
Really?
No. Well, let me ask you, why are you asking that question?
I'm asking that because, so my son-in-law is just finishing medical school, and he's going to be an orthopedic surgeon, and his father is a pediatrician. And seeing the journey of how hard it is to even get accepted to medical school, go through medical school, it's been insane watching. And one of the things my daughter said is, okay, if I'm going to support you, it needs to be a field where you're going to make some money. And he loves anyway orthopedics, but it's a very competitive field. Yep. And basically the field where you don't really make money is in pediatrics.
Totally.
So to to watch personally the investment, the money and the time and the pressure to go through on this journey and to go into a field that doesn't make any money is, that's why that's one. And number two is that everyone told my son-in-law, including his own father, that unless you absolutely, the only thing you want to do in your life is to be a doctor, don't be a doctor because it's so grueling. And I mean, he's not going to actually make any money until he's like 35 years old, which is like, and the investment that he's put in is insane. Right. So that's why I asked.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I'll say that, number one, I'm a woman. So for me, I never thought that I was going to be the primary breadwinner. And I always loved pediatrics. I always loved kids. So the financial considerations didn't really play into my decision, into going to medical school, becoming a pediatrician. Is it grueling? Is it terribly hard? Did it suck up, many years of my early 20s and beyond? Absolutely. But I loved it. I thought I was going to be a pediatrician for the rest of my life. I loved pediatrics. I loved every part of it. And then, I ended up actually quitting my job in the midst of some really horrific things. Basically, I was very lucky. So, college, medical school, I met my husband towards the end of medical school. We got married, had our first, and thought kind of we would probably have 5-6 kids. We're in the YU Machmir world and thought that was the right number. We're actually, just for people who don't know, my husband and I are both Balei Tshuva. So we both come from families that are very traditional and very invested in being Jewish, but not specifically halachic, not specifically, following Jewish law per se. We both have higher degrees, and it was very important for both of us to continue with those. And our parents, encouraged us to have those higher degrees, and as opposed to discouraging, as you were saying, in your own family. But I ended up actually leaving pediatrics about 9 years into that journey, because into that timing, because I started having multiple miscarriages. Now, to take this story a little bit forward and then a little bit back, I had 4 second-trimester miscarriages in a row, and that was after having 3 healthy children. And so my body clearly was working and things were fine, but then all of a sudden something changed. And the doctors couldn't figure it out. We saw umpteen specialists all over. Nobody could understand why this was happening. I was completely healthy. The babies were all completely healthy. It was something about my body was rejecting these pregnancies. And in the midst of that, I could not do my job anymore. A lot of people talk about how, when you're going through a specific struggle, that if it's a personal struggle, that work is a distraction, that you can go to work and you can bury yourself in your work and then, forget about what's happening on the outside. And for me, that didn't work, because coming to work meant seeing and taking care of babies. And I was delivering dead babies over and over again. And so I had to quit my job for my own mental health. I was already, frankly, during those years, a shell of a person. I really deeply depressed. I was barely functional. I would pull myself together for when my children were home from school or in the mornings to kind of get them out, and then spend the rest of the day crying in bed, and at night, barely able to fall asleep because I was just such a mess. And it's an experience that I don't wish on anyone. But what ended up happening here is that after that 4th loss, we took a very long break. And even I said to both my doctor and to my husband, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm emotionally broken. I'm physically broken. It's just, we need to put this away, be grateful for what we have. Yeah. Come back to myself, be a mother, be a wife, and just try to forget about all this. And it worked for a while. But there was this piece inside of me that kept saying, there was that thing that one doctor who I didn't really like so much said, like, maybe if you stand on your head every second Tuesday, or maybe if you eat gluten-free, or maybe like they were saying these things, which really didn't at that point. And I want to be very clear, we're talking about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
At that point, it really had no basis in science. And as a science person, every time someone offered me some kind of solution or hypothesis, I would say, show me the data. And if they couldn't show me the data, I just wasn't interested. But we made a decision. I at the end of the day, I know that Hashem is in charge, and that it's his decision as to whether I would have another baby or not. But you can't just like keep standing in a lifeboat, like, and the waters are rising, and just say like, save me, save me. Like, you actually have to put the hishtadlus in. And so we tried one last time, did all the things that people said that were totally ridiculous. And I got pregnant again. I get to that 7-week ultrasound where you're supposed to see the heartbeat. There were 2 heartbeats. And I turned to my husband and I said, oh, good. There'll be 2 babies that die now, not 1. Because
that's what you were expecting.
Because when you've had repeated trauma, your brain doesn't know how to handle any other kind of news. You expect the trauma. You expect it to go bad. So that's what happens. And we spent, those 9 months. Mostly me. My husband was able to be distracted more than I was, but any person who's had a pregnancy after a loss can tell you that it is the absolute worst 9 months of their lives, as you're waiting for that shoe to drop and just hoping and praying that no one will ask you anything about the pregnancy because you're too scared to even whisper the fact that you might be pregnant. Or when people ask you, well, when are you due? And you're like, can we not talk about this now? I'm due whenever the baby comes. And like, let's talk about what we're having for Shabbos. And just like, I literally would avoid conversations in social settings where people would start asking me. I stayed away from lots of things because I couldn't handle it. And that's, thankfully, those little babies are now 11, almost 12 years old, and they're delicious and healthy, and they fight just like all of my other kids in the way that they're supposed to. And I feel incredibly lucky and felt incredibly lucky at that point, and just wanted to spend time with them and taking care of them, and didn't even conceive of going back to work.
Did you miss it during that time? Was there like a part of you that missed the sort of passion and drive and working and doing that?
So not yet. Like, I was so tired.
Yeah.
I had 2 tiny babies who were eating, every 5 seconds, and I had 3 older kids, and I was just like, I was ugh. It was ugh, as we all know, in the postpartum period. And you would think like, oh, I had 3 kids already. What's the big deal? It's a big deal.
Yeah.
So it really took me time to kind of like find my brain again. But at the 2-year mark, I started really getting very itchy and kept saying like, I need to go back to work. It's time. I started interviewing for jobs again, and then
ask you a quick question about that. Like, did you ever do private practice? Did you ever think about having a private practice, or for you wanted to work in other practices?
Yeah, for me, my job was always going to be part-time. It was never going to be full-time, because my family was my priority, was and still is my priority. I never wanted to have a practice, and I felt that being part of a practice meant doing more hours. At least the ones that were available at that point were doing more hours than I really wanted to devote to this. So the kinds of jobs that I was looking at were things like shift work or working in clinics, things where there was a very discrete like time in and time out, where at that point, and now I'm dating myself, like we all used to have beepers and people would be, beeping us all day long. Now the cell phones are no different, but I didn't want those calls in the middle of the night. I wanted to be home, and I wanted, like, when I was off, I wanted to be off. And when I was there, I wanted to be there. And so there were only a certain number of jobs that I really wanted.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You're lucky to be able to have done that. I know just like the going through the medical school and making that huge investment, and that not having to be like the financial piece that is like, okay, now that I did all that, I need to make, a lot of money to at least pay off the loans
100%.
and do all of that. And so being able to do that from a place just of passion and love of what you wanted to do, and then being able to fit your career around your life, which I always say, like, that's so important to fit your career around your life, that you were able to do that, which is amazing. It probably did help that you didn't get married until like you said you're almost done with medical school. So like that really hard time. But I know there's a lot of people, I know my daughter-in-law really wanted to be a doctor, and ultimately kind of talked to a lot of people in it, and just the commitment.
It was too hard.
Yeah, the commitment with raising a family and making those choices. I interviewed Dr. Jessica Jacobs, and I mean, she taught you can't have everything.
No, you can't have everything.
And it's like, what are you willing to give up? And she gave up quite a bit. So I think that's amazing for you that you were in such a fortunate position that you got to do what you loved, and you didn't have to give up the life that you wanted with your family.
Right. Look, I made very specific choices when I knew that I wanted to go into pediatrics, and also the kind of job that I was willing to take.
Yeah.
And to be very clear, the only reason why I had that flexibility, and frankly still have a lot of that flexibility, is because of my husband.
Yeah.
My husband works in finance, and I don't have to be the primary breadwinner. And so that gives me infinite flexibility. It also gave me the flexibility to walk away from medicine. I didn't have a job for, 8 years, something like that. I mean, it was a long period of time, and he was able to sustain us as a family, and that was huge.
Yes.
And I don't take that for granted.
That's amazing. Okay, so getting back to your story.
Yeah.
So you were ready, you're itching to do something, you started to interview for particular types of jobs.
Yeah. And the thing that actually turned everything around for me was that I was asked to speak at my local shul on a Shabbos afternoon about my experience with pregnancy loss. Now, all of you know that my losses, the majority of my losses were in the second trimester. So even now, we're talking 13 years ago, 12 years ago, whatever it is. Oh, actually, sorry. My math is terrible. We're not going to do the math. Let's take that part out. We don't have to talk about math. Many years ago, if my twins are almost 12, so 10 years ago, the world was still not talking about fertility challenges in an open way. We are in a much different place right now. And the reason why I believe I was asked by the committee, and the reason why I accepted, was because the majority of my losses were in the second trimester, which meant that everybody knew I was pregnant and that everybody knew I wasn't. And so they were public, even though I had no desire for my personal life experiences to be public at that point. And I kind of mulled over it with my husband. My husband is an intensely private person. And he said, do you really want to? Do you need to? Is it necessary? I said, actually, I really want to do this, because not only will it help the people out there who are experiencing this, but it will also give everyone else a window into what this is like, so that when they hear someone is going through some kind of challenge, that they can be more supportive. I mean, if I can say the word, the statistics are that 1 in 4 pregnancies ends in a miscarriage. That's massive.
Was that always?
Pretty much always.
I just wonder if I don't know if we're hearing more about it, or it's just the environment has changed where there's a lot more fertility issues and all of these things within our community.
And I think that we're also talking about things in a more open way. Lots of people, the most common miscarriage happens in the first trimester, and really also happens in those first few weeks. Those first few weeks, in many communities, even not in the FIRB community, people aren't necessarily advertising the fact that they're pregnant. It still feels too risky. Yeah. So are we talking about it now much more? Yes. But are the numbers really any different? I mean, not that anyone can point to. Okay. The numbers have been the same. And I think it's also important for people to know it's not 1 in 4 people that are having miscarriages. it's 1 in 4 pregnancies. And so for people in a frum community like we are, most people are having 4 children or more on average. And so that means that every single person is probably having some kind of loss. Or if it's not happening to you, it's happening to your next door neighbor or your sister or your mother or your child. And so this is everywhere. Now, and we're only talking about loss, right? And only one slice of loss. There's also infertility, et cetera. But I digress. The way I got started in this is that I spoke that Shabbos afternoon to 150 women. I was sick to my stomach the whole night before and couldn't sleep, trying to put this talk together. And I had dozens of people come over to me afterwards and say, thank you so much, and thank you so much. And I had this, and oh, you should meet X, Y, and Z. And that basically catapulted me into an entire different world, because I was then introduced to a woman named Riva Judas. She runs an organization called Nechama Comfort. They're based in New Jersey. They deal specifically with pregnancy loss. And instead of doing medicine, I started volunteering with her. And again, because I had that financial flexibility, right? And so I worked with her for a few years and really saw the ins and outs of what a proper support, wraparound support for pregnancy loss looks like in the Jewish community, but saw that there was still a lot more work to do. And there were still holes in the support that the Jewish community had in regard to fertility challenges. And so I was supposed to have a baby.
Okay, that's an incredible story, and thank you so much for sharing it. And it's so important as we talk about founding a nonprofit, because there usually is a backstory as to why somebody is motivated to do a tremendous amount of work and have a startup in the nonprofit space. And I always say, I could appreciate when people have a startup in the for-profit space, because their goals are, hopefully, if it's successful, not only does it probably help with meet a passion that they have, but also the financial results. And you put in a tremendous amount of work. But I'm so inspired, and I have so much respect for people who want to start a nonprofit, because they're putting in all the work of a startup and all the work of a business, and they get the result is the impact they make on the world. There certainly isn't a financial reward, and normally it's opposite, where they're putting their own funds in to make sure that it goes. So that's like incredible and incredibly inspiring. And one of the reasons I love to interview women who have startups and build nonprofits. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about that, because I think that people do have a lot of really amazing ideas out there for a nonprofit and something that they're passionate about, but they really have no idea what it takes to start, the journey it is to do. So can we talk a little bit about, okay, you decided you wanted to build this, like, where'd you go? Where'd you start? What were the first steps that you took when you're like, I have this idea and I want to do this?
Okay, so right. I have no experience running a nonprofit. I have no experience running a business. I'm a doctor, to be clear. I'm a doctor. I will say that in college, I was a psychobio major, so it was effectively like a double major between psychology and biology. And I also ran a crisis hotline. So I had a lot of experience, both from the medical angle, from the psychological angle, mental health angle, and also the personal experience of what I had dealt with. So that to me was enough. And then really it actually started when I was working at Nechama Comfort. There were a few different training programs where Jewish women nonprofit leaders, there was actually one program run through the UJA and Turo, run by a woman named Cindy Darrison. I don't know if her name has been mentioned here on this podcast yet, but she is a absolute powerhouse of a woman who has put together, I think they're now in their 5th or 6th cohort of bringing together women who are running nonprofits or gemachs first it was the New York area, but then she expanded, and really giving them proper training as to how to run a nonprofit. And so when I was part of Nechama Comfort, I was in, I think, their 2nd cohort.
Oh, that's great.
And so right away, I immediately had an understanding, okay, I need this and this and this, and I need this and this and that, and blah, blah. Like I had an understanding as to what I needed. I also got some training as part of Nechama Comfort. They were part of the OU Impact Accelerator, their first cohort. And so the training that I had gotten already with Cindy was the foundation, and it built on some of those pieces as well, and helped, how to solicit, how to run an organization, how to run a staff, how to create marketing, what's your mission, what's your vision, like sort of it took the building blocks of what Cindy gave us and kind of got you to the next level. Now, I was still part of Nechama Comfort then, but I left when they were sort of towards the end of their process with the accelerator. Felt that I knew enough at that point and already had this. I knew what I wanted to create. I just needed to make sure I was doing in the right way. It was very important for me that everything that was done exactly the right way. There was no funny business. That it was, if I needed a lawyer, if I needed a bookkeeper, if I needed an accountant, if I needed, these documents and those documents, and like everything needed to be in place before we launched. And so I had all of those pieces. And then,
and what are some, just for people who want to start? So you have to file to be a nonprofit, right?
Correct. You have to file federally to be a nonprofit, and then you get your, I forget what it stands for, but your EIN number. There are articles of, I want to say articles of confederation, but that sounds wrong. There are some articles. In a company,
there's articles in corporation.
But
they do that in a nonprofit.
Right.
Also.
There are some articles of something that you need. Okay, great. You see, I'm so we're 6 years old right now, and I'm removed from the initial stages. But
it sounds like it's a similar process to starting a business.
Process. Okay. Correct. Yeah. Correct. And there are a couple of other steps. I just don't remember exactly what they are, frankly. I'm happy to talk to anyone.
Do you have to create a board
afterwards.
Right away, or you didn't have to
do
that?
No, you do not have to create a board right away. And that was kind of it. I know I'm missing a few pieces, but it was important to me to know what I needed exactly to begin with and what were the next steps.
And was it just you? Like you were going to start with just you, so you could volunteer your time?
Correct. It was just me. And the idea was to utilize social media to be able to bring emotional support to anyone in the Jewish community with any kinds of fertility challenge. And I know that lots of people have lots to say about the evils of social media, and I agree with actually most of them. And it happens to be a beautiful, dignified, anonymous space for people to share their fertility challenges and to be able to access support and resources without anyone knowing that they need them. You don't have to show up to a group in person and, everyone's like, where are you going at 7:00 at night? How come I thought you were going to the grocery store. You're not bringing back any groceries. Like, I feel like that there is something about literally being in your own bed and being able to log on and get support, whether that's passive support in terms of just the content that we put out all day long, or whether it's joining an in-person support group or the podcast that we have. Our podcast didn't start right away, to be clear. I'm taking us a few years down the line, but there's something so powerful about really meeting people where they are and making it easy for them in a time in their life where everything is so hard and just getting out of bed feels hard. So why not literally deliver to them in the palm of their hands? And so that's what we do. And we just started. And
so it started with
slowly, started with me. Slowly, we poured a little bit of our own money into it. And that first year, I decided like all nonprofits need to raise money. So I needed to raise money also.
But you didn't know what you were going to spend it on yet.
I did. No, I did.
Okay.
I was gonna spend it on an admin. I needed another person.
Yeah.
I desperately, I can't do everything. I needed another person. So our first crowdfunding campaign, we asked, our goal was $25,000. And we raised something like 36 or 37 or something like that.
And did you put the crowdfunding, like the whole app, it's like there's apps and stuff.
Everything.
You did it all yourself.
All
So you
myself.
figured it out.
All myself. Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I mean, I'm pretty good with technology, so
Yeah.
it's just, give me a little bit of time to play. And
Yeah.
I mean, I did consult with a few. What do you
Yeah.
think about this? Where I saw other people using X, Y, and Z, and so I was like,
Which
that
can I
seems
ask which
interesting.
app you used? Or which
At that point, we used DonorBox.
okay.
And yeah, at that point we used DonorBox. And I think at the same time was when we also started onboarding our CRM.
Okay.
So both of those things happened at once. And we also built our first website, and that launched all around the 1-year mark. So it was a combination
And
of
when
a
you
bunch
say
of
we
things.
built our website.
Oh, I mean with a consultant. Sorry.
Okay.
I didn't do that myself.
Okay, so then you spent your own money before you to be able to do that. And did your husband help you with the nonprofit at all, or
a lot of emotional support,
Yeah.
a lot of chizuk, a little bit of money just to kind of like get it moving.
Yeah.
But this was mine.
Yeah.
This was mine.
Okay, so that's impressive. So in your first year, and you were putting out content, you raised this money, and you put up a website.
Yeah.
So how much time were you putting in at that first year of your own time? And it does take such a passion and love to get something off the ground. And what was that motivator? Was it healing for you? Was it the need out there that you so desperately wanted to share? What was it for you that really pushed all those hours in that first year all alone?
It's always been about trying to make one other person feel less alone. Always. That's the driving force. That's my North Star. Always. There are people out there that are suffering. I know that I can help. I know that we can help. And how do we do that in the most productive, effective way that delivers a quality experience, quality content, so to speak, so that people really feel seen and held. So for me, it's always about that, always. I was devoting a very significant amount of time for it. And the way actually, is because before 6 years ago-ish, when I was not working as much, and during all those years when I was not working at all, I love to cook and bake. Love. It's really baking a little bit more than cooking, to be frank. It's just, I love trying new recipes. It's like it kind of gets my creative juices going. I love watching people eat delicious food and like giving feedback to, like, there's just something for me that's really nurturing. I love doing it. And on my personal like Instagram account, I used to post like my favorite cakes or my favorite recipes that I loved and I knew that were easy enough and that people and tons of people used to tell me. I mean, I wasn't a food blogger, but it was more like, oh, I made this cake for Shabbos. It was really yum. And like then 10 other people were like, oh, I made it next week. Next week I made blah, blah, blah. And like that was gratifying to me. So like once I started, I was supposed to have a baby. Those opportunities to not to cook, but those opportunities to post and then engage and like trying to push some of those pieces out started dwindling. There was less time for other things. And that's okay. It's now I cook and bake because I love it and I want to, but I don't have to show the rest of the world that I'm doing it. And I just show my family and our guests for Shabbos. And people still call me for recipes if they want them, and I'm happy to do that. But it's really, the piece for me is to try to strike the balance between spending all of my time on this and balancing my personal obligations and my family obligations, and like my son who keeps asking me to make an appointment for the allergist and I keep forgetting. Like it's on my to-do list and I'm busy during the day. And when he comes home from school, the allergist's office is closed and like I'm just one person. And so maybe I need a personal assistant, but I'm not there yet. And so I drop, like I'm a terrible returner when I buy, 5 pairs of shoes to see which one fits my kids and back to school sneakers. And I'm always the one returning the shoes on the last day, because I just forget. I spend a lot of time doing this.
And so let's talk about how it started to build. So your first hire, you said, was an admin, and that was after a year.
Yep.
Was that like hard to make that decision, or that crowdfunding campaign was so successful, you're like, great, now I can hire it?
No, I need help. This is overwhelming. I was thrilled to bring someone in. It happened to be that person I ended up firing a few months later because it was not working out, and then rehired an absolutely phenomenal, amazing person who stayed with us for 3.5 years until she was in grad school at the time, and then she went off.
How'd you find her? I think a lot of times people struggle like, okay, I want to hire someone, but how do I find someone good, and how do I go through that?
In all of my hiring, I really believe that Hashem has just given us good people because he knows that we're doing good work. So I feel very blessed with my hiring. At that time, I put it out on my personal social media, on our professional social media, that we were looking. We had a job description. And then I ended up hiring her. Her name is Julia. I love her. I don't know if she'll be listening, but I still love her, and she knows that. That she, the Chabad rabbi from college, I went to Binghamton, saw that I was looking, and he said, oh, I have tons of students who, blah, blah, blah. Can I send it to them? I was like, please.
Yeah.
And she was one of those students who had just graduated. She was in school for, I always forget, for like PsyD, like she was getting a PsyD, and she was looking for extra work. And she was the perfect person because she not only was really she was the perfect admin because she was very detail oriented and like really I'm trying to think of the right word. She's a person who completes projects. She's just really
like
excellent.
Type A,
she's
go-getter.
You know what? Anything. Actually, exactly. The best way to describe her, she loves spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I hate spreadsheets.
Yeah.
She loves them. And I was like, oh, I need to hire you.
Yeah.
Right. So she was the right hire. And it was exactly what we needed. It was exactly what we needed. And it helped get us to the next stage of then once we had her, and then, every year we did a crowdfunding campaign every year because our reach grew, our audience grew. The people who were giving back were the people who had been directly affected by our work, in addition to friends and family and so on. At that point, I also started with a first-time board and an introductory board type. I know there's a proper name for that.
Advisory board?
Sure. Okay. Advisory board, first board, whatever you want to call them. So they also helped with, some fundraising or programming and ideas and things like that. So we were already beginning to have a name for ourselves. And so every year we tried to raise money, we were able to raise a little bit more. And so I was able to hire more people or do more things, and it just grew.
And where are you today?
So today my model is actually a little bit different than most people in that I am the only person who works full-time. And as my family says, speaking back to your previous question, they think I work more than full-time, and they're probably right. The rest of my staff all work part-time. And I made that decision specifically because I have a limited budget, and rather than getting 2 or 3 people in full-time, I wanted to make sure to have a diversification of skill sets so that we could create a better product. And so I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm really not good at. And just to have 1 or 2 other people, or maybe even 3, it wasn't enough. We all work remote. We figure out scheduling in terms of when we can work most effectively together, but all of us do really effective and just beautiful work independently, and everybody works on their own time, and it works for people's lives, and it works for me. And what it also enabled me to do is hire someone who was not an entry-level person, but hire someone who was mid to upper level, on a part-time basis, meaning that I'm getting someone who's really good, who then could come in and help shape the organization, which is exactly what I wanted. And so those next 2 hires, I hired a director of operations and I hired a director of development.
And you had to find people who are willing to work part-time.
Of course. I mean, the RFP was part-time. This is part-time, period.
Yeah.
And I pay people well. I pay them at the top of what they would be asking for at that stage in their career. I believe in that deeply, that I pay people well because I want them to stay and I want good people.
Yeah.
And we just, kept building. So we have the 2 of them. Then we, our admin went to work. So we had to do a little switcheroo there. We added on a social media coordinator because I was doing all the social media prior to that. So we added on someone else who could really assist there. And then in the spring, we added a director of programming.
And you're growing. What's your vision for it going forward?
And that's just staff. I mean, I also have 9 support group leaders who are running my support groups. We have, that's just staff. We have lots of other people that are doing other things, but they're not staff. They're contractors.
Right. But you're managing all of this.
Yeah. And I have a supervision structure and other people are in supervising roles. I'm not supervising everyone necessarily. That was actually a huge learning curve for me.
Yeah.
In medicine, there is no such thing as supervision. It does not exist. You get taught by the attending or the resident that's in the year ahead of you, but there's no such thing of, can we talk about the day and what's going well, what's not going well, and how can we be more efficient? And, what are you worried about? Or how can we help this project go better for you? What are the things that are you having trouble with your coworker for X, Y, and Z? Supervision does not exist in medicine. So when my director of operations and development came on now 2.5 years ago, and they said, okay, so we're going to be doing supervision. And I was like, sure. Okay. What's that? And they were like, wait, what? It makes perfect sense. How can you run a business? I mean, a nonprofit effectively is a business. It's a different kind of business, but how can you run a business effectively without not just giving people work, but checking in and making sure people are okay and having dedicated time where you can run through different issues and problem solve and support them, and they can support you. And I mean, it's revolutionary. I mean, it's not because it's existed forever, but I just didn't know.
What are the metrics that you guys use to kind of measure your success each year and growth each year?
Yeah. So I was just talking about this with the person who's in the background here filming this podcast. The metrics for most other fertility organizations, Jewish or not, are that success is a baby. Success equals baby. You're coming to me because you don't have a baby or you lost a baby, and success is when I put a picture of a delicious, chubby baby all over my website so that you can see this is what you can have and this is how we will help you get there. And success for I was supposed to have a baby has nothing to do with a baby. Success for us is that people feel held, supported, heard in whatever they're going through, and that they have the wherewithal to make decisions on their own as to how they want to proceed with their lives and feel totally whole about that. It is also success for us is when people come up to me in the grocery store or on the street or the text messages that I get and say, I really just want to thank you because my mother used to say all these things to me about how come I wasn't getting pregnant yet and I'm not getting any younger, and my sister-in-laws all were so rude and always prancing around and parading their pregnant bellies, and we've been married for 5 years and we haven't been able to have any kids. And I was so not looking forward to going to Rosh Hashanah with them. But I was going to do it anyway because it's family, and I was going to suck it up and do it. And for some reason, this Rosh Hashanah, I feel okay doing it because they've been so kind and so like bending over backwards of like, what do you need? How can we make you comfortable? I'll make your favorite meals. Like, oh, you don't have to babysit the kids this year. Like, you can go take the walks on Shabbos afternoon or, whatever, the afternoon. You don't have to, like, just the conversations that I have when people share with me, the community that people have changed their behavior and that they're more aware and sensitive as to what people are experiencing, that is success. And we measure that, to be clear. We have metrics, we have surveys, we have these measurements. And so I know what our successes are. I have them in statistics, percentages, whatever. But I also have, I don't know, I think it's like a 50-page Google Doc with hundreds of testimonials at this point.
Wow. How many people do you think you've touched?
I don't know.
Thousands, you think?
Yes.
That's amazing. Is it everything that you hoped it would be when you started?
I never would have thought it was going to be this big. And we're still growing. I mean, again, I was just thinking about that one person.
Yeah.
And I have had dreams. I had hopes. I still have lots of dreams and hopes as to where I'd love to take this. If someone handed me a blank check and said, you can hire as many people as you want and you can do as many programs as you want. And I know exactly what I would do with all of those things. But at the end of the day, it's about one person. And so that's what I try to, the best way I can describe this is that, our work is mainly on social media, and like we get tons of direct messages on Instagram and on a number of our other platforms. And my staff keeps yelling at me and saying that we need to automate the responses, that we need to take this burden off of me because I answer every single message myself. And I keep pushing back and saying, absolutely not. I will automate, we will make more efficient any other process that you want, but this is where I need, my heart needs to be, because when people are reaching out from that really vulnerable place, I don't want them to get a bot. Mm-hmm. Even if the bot says, we're going to get back to you really soon,
yeah.
To me, that just feels yucky. I want them to get me, and it may take me 24 or 48 hours to get me, but when you get me, you actually get me. And people know, I say all the time, you're only getting me. It may take me a little bit of time. And if you don't see it in the time, if it's something urgent, then message me again. But you're only going to get me. And so I refuse to give it up.
That's amazing. I also just, I think there's a lot of women that are listening to and watching this podcast, and in just really being exposed in the last few years to a number of organizations that support women, organizations that are run by women. I think they have the greatest challenge in raising funds. For whatever reason, there's a lot of money that goes to a lot of things that support boys. And when men are running the organization or raising for the organization, they have an easier time. But I have found that women for sure have struggled a little bit more. And so I've really been an advocate for women to step up and really give to organizations that support women, that provide services for women, and that are run by women. And so if people do want to give a donation and want to support the organization, where's the best place for them to go?
Our website where I was supposed to have a baby.org.
Okay.
And
amazing.
Thank you. I always say, I'm only limited by the amount of money that we can bring in. And so the more people who can support, I have a lot of hopes and dreams.
That's amazing. Okay, well, now we're going to go into our questions that come. And so I'd love to start by just hearing, and I'd love for you to think about your medical career and creating this nonprofit. Was there ever a time where things really got so hard that you wanted to quit, but you pushed through it?
So look, I mean, I've shared already the time when I walked away from medicine. So I was still, when I was having these second trimester losses, and then having to go back in and take care of other people's babies when my babies were dying. It was just, I mean, I was like, I would start getting anxiety attacks as I was packing up to go in the morning, and then walking in and having to like sneak off into a like supply closet and cry and then come back. It was just, it was not good. It was really not good. And that was the hardest. And you said to me before about how, do I miss medicine? And I was worried almost, and like, was it worth it for me to go into medicine? And there was a piece of me that was like, how can I just walk away from this? I just spent all of these years of my life and hundreds of thousands of dollars on, education and all of that. And how could I walk away? And I just like, my mental health was a wreck. Like I couldn't, there was no other place to go because I was working in a hospital dealing with newborn babies. Yeah. Like, where was I going? Yeah. There was like, at that point I had worked so long in that space that, okay, I could have transitioned to a regular, pediatric floor and work with older kids, but I wasn't good at it anymore. And I'm not the person, like, if I'm doing something, I'm doing it because I'm really good at it. I don't like to feel uncomfortable. I don't like to feel that I don't have the answers. I want to be confident in the work that I do. And so I would have to really like shadow someone again and get retrained on some level. And it didn't feel comfortable for me, especially when I was in such a emotionally vulnerable state where I was just out of sorts. It was like, I don't have the bandwidth to start over again right now. Yeah. It was just, I need to just walk away. And so that was the point.
What was when you think about, again, your career, you're building this nonprofit, what was the best advice that you got?
Listen to your gut. There was a moment where there were some very hard decisions that I needed to make, where I was transitioning from one to another, and from one situation to another, and I was deeply unhappy in one particular situation that was really wreaking havoc on again, we're talking about emotional health, my mental health. Like, it was wreaking havoc on my mental health. And I kept pushing through because I believed that the work was good and that I knew I was making a difference and I was helping people. But the situation was toxic. And at one point, after I complained to my husband, like for the umpteenth time, he says to me, he's like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, this isn't necessary. You can do something else. Like, walk away. Nothing is worth you feeling like this. And it took me a little bit of time. I didn't listen to him right away because I was still convinced, like, no, the work is good. I'm staying. I'm helping people. It's all going to be good. I can deal with it. I'm a strong person. I can deal with it. I can push through. I don't. On some level, I thought like I was weak if I walked away. But he was so right. And the minute I walked away, like I woke up the next morning and it was like a boulder had been lifted off my chest. It was like I was finally breathing again. He was so right.
That actually is such great advice. Also, even sometimes like when you're managing a team and you have an employee that is not working out, but people let that like stay for a really long time because they're scared to have a difficult conversation. And I was actually just talking about this with my son the other day as he was dealing with the situation. And I could tell there's something in you. It shouldn't feel that way. It's like there's something bothering you inside. Then you've just got to be honest. You just got to sit down and have the difficult conversation with this employee and, tell them how it is, tell them what the expectations are and, and figure it out if it's not going to work out, then it doesn't work out. And it's the same type of thing if you're in a situation and it doesn't feel like it's, but people tend to sit in that for a while because there's a fear
100%.
As opposed to just like, when it's not all right. Now, sometimes you could fix it. You have a difficult conversation, you could fix it. Or sometimes after you've had that difficult conversation, you need to part ways, whether you're going or they're going. But I would just say to people, if you're feeling it, do not be afraid to have a difficult conversation and don't come from a place of fear. People would tell you waste so much energy and so much time where you could have dealt with something earlier. People think, oh, I can't fire this person because then I'm not going to be able, it's not going to work. They're not replaceable. Everybody's replaceable.
Yes.
I can't leave this because everything works itself out.
Yes.
You can't stay and you can't allow to, continue usually toxic situations because they fester and they grow bigger and they don't get easier. So I think that's a great piece of advice that came for you and also just like in general, I think for everyone. My next question for you is, when you think about this entire journey, what was the most accomplished moment? What was the moment has there been a moment where you're like, wow, I can't believe I've done the most exciting point so far?
For me, really, these moments are actually when we run our campaigns, our annual campaigns. It is, we pour a lot of work, as I'm sure maybe even other people here have shared. We pour a lot of work into trying to position in the best way possible the work that we do to get people to understand it and make them feel something so that they're moved to give. And the preparation that goes into that is tremendous. There are so many different facets. And a lot of it is just it's this deep, belief or maybe I don't know even know if belief is actually the right way to talk about it. I think it's a little bit kind of going out on a ledge and saying, I really hope that I'm going to be able to raise this amount of money this year. Yes, I can look at my data and I can look at my donors and based on the people who gave last year and the people who, haven't given, and I can have some sort of very fancy calculation and we can come up with a number and I think it's going to be X. But the bottom line is that there are so many different facets that go into whether people give or whether they don't give, the things that are well beyond our control, whether the economy tanks, people have jobs, don't have jobs, they have personal crises, et cetera. So someone who may be giving you $1 million one year, by the way, I've never gotten $1 million, but to be clear, someone who might be giving you $1 million could be giving you nothing the next year. And so it's all just, it's really in Hashem's hands. And every single time we just get to the place where we pick a number that we think is realistic with also a bit of a reach, to be clear. And thank God, every single one of our crowdfunders, we have superseded our goal. And I always just attribute that to Hashem. It is just Hashem is in charge. I have to put in my work, but Hashem is in charge and that the money comes. And it's just, I feel such a sense of accomplishment that we did the thing that I was hoping that we would do, but also with the recognition that this has nothing to do with me. I'm just doing my best. And at the end of the day, someone else is in charge.
That's amazing. What would you tell your younger self?
I tell her to try to get some more sleep because I don't sleep very much. What would I tell her? I don't know what I would tell her. The person I am now is a very different person than when I was then. And she was young and idealistic and thought that life was going to go as planned. And I would never want to burst someone's bubble and tell them, like, you're going to go through these horrific things, but you're going to be okay. I feel like I don't know anyone that would hear that well. Like, I just, like, people just focus on, wait, I'm going to go through 6 miscarriages? What? Like, they don't hear the end, like, you're going to be okay afterwards and you're going to build this amazing organization that are like, you don't hear that. We tend to focus on the negative, unfortunately. So I don't know that I would be able to tell her anything, honestly.
What would you say is your superpower?
Oh, the fact that I have award-winning cholent. I'm not kidding. I've won multiple awards for my cholent.
That's great. Where do they give out awards for cholent?
Okay, well, in the local shuls in Riverdale, we've had many cholent contests.
Wow.
So I have won multiple awards for my cholent. And also there was this organization that was part of YU, I don't know if it's an organization or just an offshoot of YU called Champions Gate, where they brought together lay leaders and community leaders are the same. I think it was like clergy, educators, and lay leaders for a few-day conference, blah, blah, blah. And they had a cholent competition there, and I also won that one.
Wow.
So
okay,
I feel
we'll
like
have to try your cholent.
I was going to say, I feel like I make a good cholent. That's my superpower.
That's awesome. Okay, last question is, what message would you like to leave with our listeners today?
I would like to tell them that you never know where life is going to take you. And I think to be open to the possibilities of just being present and never seeing things that are in front of you as being the absolute end, that to be open to possibilities. That was advice that there was a pediatric endocrinologist who lives in Riverdale. She gave to me when I first got married, and I was like all in my I'm a pediatrician mode. And I was like so happy, just came out of, my residency, and I was all fired up. And she had been in practice already for a good 20, 30 years. And she had done lots of different things in the course of her career. First, she worked in the hospital. Then she had a private practice. Then she worked for a pharmaceutical company. Then she did some research. Like, she was doing all these different things. And she said, you need to be open to the possibilities. Like, you think you're going to be a pediatrician working in a hospital for the rest of your life, and just be open. And I came home to my husband and I said, I met this really nice lady, and I think she's absolutely crazy. I thought, I dreamed of being a doctor. I thought I was going to do this for the rest of my life. And then I didn't, right? And I'm sitting here now. I mean, being a pediatrician would never have gotten me on this podcast, to be clear, right? It's not that exciting. Life never goes the way you expect it. And just to, if you are a person who can roll with the punches, eventually, after the period of grief and horribleness. But if you are a person who has the capacity to pick yourself up and to then be able to give back or seek new opportunities, then do that. It doesn't have to be the same old, same old. There are so many ways to just help society, help our community. Doctoring is one of them. This is another of them. And, so many of the women that you have here, whether they're running for-profits or non-for-profits, they're affecting change in the community. And I think being open to that bigger possibility, that it doesn't just have to be, you go to work and come home, that life may have something more and more for you, and just to be open.
I love that. That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. It was so inspiring. You have an incredible story. Thank you for having the courage, not just to do what you do now, but like way back then, and for being a builder. I like to talk, there's being a builder and giving back and helping to create in our community especially is really incredible. So thank you so much.
Thank you again for the incredible opportunity.
This episode was made possible by our friends at Roth & Co. We are grateful for their continued partnership. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and that you'll join us for the next one. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch this conversation on YouTube, so be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until we meet again, stay inspired to lead.